the joke is like, yeah, I led that. I totally led that.
Yeah.
That joke. Basically, every time that joke is made, it's because the leader was actually following.
Yeah. Yeah.
I can hear the heads exploding in the distance. Hello and welcome to another episode of Nerdy West Coast Swing, the podcast with pixels where the anchors are out of this world and the points don't matter. We are here to help train your eyes so you can learn faster and dance better. I'm Cassie Winter.
I'm Alicia Marshall. If you're wondering who are we to be analyzing these pros, Cassie and I both have extensive training and experience in both partnered and solo dancing. Cassie has about 22 years and I have about 24. Tonight we are taking a look at two different dances and we're talking about how to decide when to lead and when to follow, basically. And that can kind of be changed within a dance, regardless of if you are the lead or if you are the follow. So I will let you elaborate on that a little bit.
Yeah, because obviously, like the majority of the time, you want the leader leading and the follow following. But what's really unique and special about West Coast Swing is it is a two-way communication. Our connection is really fantastic to have that. So regardless of what role you're in, if you're a follow, learning to see moments where you can contribute to the dance, and then the leader would take more of a follow role to react to you. Or as a leader, you notice your follows adding an idea to the dance, letting them have space for it. So we're kind of thinking of leading as communicating and initiating an idea, and a follow as creating space and or counterbalancing, basically allowing that idea to come to fruition. It's not necessarily about yanking around your partner suddenly out of the blue. That is only condoned in near-death circumstances. We had a pretty tight house Saturday night up in Seattle. The things you can do to save your partner from imminent death are fascinating.
Yeah.
But the goal is to do that without also injuring them yourself. So, Our first dance tonight is between Melissa Roots and Maxence Martin from Capital Swing 2011. I'm going to go ahead and drop the link in the chat. Go ahead and give it a watch. And when you're done, we'll get to analyzing. All right. To the screen share. So we've basically set bookmarks for this video and the next video we're going to share tonight of specific instances where one or the other partner is either taking the lead or giving it up, and how that communication is happening. So this first one is really simple. After Maxence clears Melissa's head with the hand hold, he lets the hand go. And that is in part because of how Melissa is carrying her frame on the right side of her head. He may be choosing to do that to not compromise her frame, or he might be noticing from just how her stance is and her timing that she's wanting to do something extra, and he wants to give her space for that. So how do you see it, Alicia?
Yeah. I mean, I definitely agree with that. And then I wanted to add in that once he does let go of her hand, she has to pay extra attention because he is behind her. So she, needs to know where he's at and where he's going. So that's the point where she has to pay extra attention to him and where he's going.
Yep. And I love how he is also just paying so much attention to the extent that they both sidestep to screen right together in such a satisfying way right through here. And this is one of those almost meta moments where, because the quick change between who was leading and who was following was so fast, you almost dance in tune at that point in time. I know that is more common than one might think once you get your connection dialed in that much. But it is very possible to have moments like that. I also just want to add, just as a stylistic note, the way Maxence kind of lilts to his left, where he lets his body keep moving past his foot, and then he catches underneath himself with his right foot. Just a really lovely effect. So for this one, Maxence is paying extra attention through Melissa's anchor out of this fun little dip sequence. And that is in part of how she's choosing to move forward under her own arm. So you can see right here, her left arm, technically her frame is broken. And it's okay to do that stylistically for certain reasons, but it's really important that the other partner is paying attention and does not apply force to a broken frame, because that can result in injury. So he loosens up the connection, he just brings it straight down, and he waits until Melissa comes back around to face him, at which point he engages the center counterpoint and allows her left shoulder to anchor back into the connection properly. So here I want to highlight how Melissa is prepping for this dip, how she's bringing her left leg up into this lovely position, and she's lifting her whole body up. She's in releve on her standing foot before going down into the dip. And this is one of those moments where Maxence may have had the intention to move into the dip right away, like expecting Melissa at this moment to already be dipping down, but she did not. He was paying attention so that he wouldn't force her if she wasn't physically willing to move into a dip. And so he's letting her dictate the timing and the shaping of this movement because he's paying attention. And as a leader, this is one of the most important places to be paying attention, because it's really easy to injure your partner or yourself in any sort of weight assisted or weight supported moves. Whenever I'm about to invite a follow myself into something like that, I always have like a breath moment to see, are we on the same page? Is it okay? And that's often a really great opening as a follow to be like, hey, I would like to add this here. And because I allowed that space for that communication to happen, I can then allow their idea to come through.
Yeah. Do you want me to talk first?
Yeah, how about you go first?
So this here is something that is a very interesting combination of things happening. Maxence is clearly leading this, but when you watch right here, Melissa is making sure that she's driving forward in order to keep that really good connection between the two of them. If she does not do that and she sits back, it becomes a very different look and feel to what they're doing. And because he's asking her to come, like rib cage to rib cage, or however you would like to, torso to torso, however you want to say that, it's important that she makes sure that she continues driving that forward.
Yeah, this is one of those really interesting moments where Maxence does totally lead this pattern where he's really initiating that backward movement for himself and the forward movement for the follow. But Alicia noticed like the tiny nuance of the timing of how Melissa is driving forward and through with her pelvis and placing her right hand on Maxence's rib cage. And she's really letting her momentum initiate this shared closed position walking together. So it would totally be possible for Maxence to initiate and lead this, but he would be the one in time moving away down the slot first, whereas here it's clear that it's Melissa. So this one, lead or follow, can work both ways. And this is where West Coast swing gets so fun. So much fun, because then you can feel like you're in each other's heads.
Yeah, this one is just such an interesting moment because there's such small things that kind of go into it that change the dynamic between them ever so slightly. And it's not so much that it changes the dynamic to where like Melissa's completely leading this, but it changes the dynamic of how it looks to the audience. It looks much more like she is leading it.
All right, so this is a rather complex combo, which might be an understatement. There's a lot going on here. The thing I wanted to say was at the end, so why don't you go first?
Yeah. So there's a couple things to note for Melissa within this. Yeah. So right here, Melissa is just kind of following as usual. It's something that feels very familiar to her. And so she's not paying any extra attention to what's happening between the two of them. She's just kind of following. However, when Maxence starts bringing her arm up and behind him in a way that's not something that you would normally see, she starts paying extra attention to what he's doing.
As a side note, if you leaders are ever leading a taller follow than you, or a follow that has very long arms, make sure with your left hand you pull it far enough away from them that their arm straightens out, or else they very suddenly have to chicken elbow to not get you in the head.
Yeah, it's not
and
pretty.
It's awkward AF. Been there before. Tangent over. Proceed.
Anyways, there's a moment that you can kind of see that she's paying extra attention to what's happening because she realizes that they're getting into a more complex sequence of things.
This is where spotting can be so helpful when you notice that kind of thing. Because if, for example, you had been spotting down the slot and you notice something change, you might transition to then spotting your leader to pay even more attention.
And then she realizes, okay, I think we're done. So I can do something now.
Yep. And I really appreciate how Maxence is also just aware that they just did a lot, and he's not then asking for even more of a lot.
Yeah.
He's like, okay, I'm going to give you a wide open space for an anchor, like, and it gives her this wonderful moment to kind of peer back at the audience and the judges. So both space and time to relax and reset in a musical way after that complex pattern.
Yeah, and it gives her a moment to like lead where she wants the dance to go. And she does that timing wise and in terms of she resets herself to the place that she wants to be.
Yeah. And then I also want to highlight that this is a very connected anchor. We're not saying that Maxence is giving that, oh, I hate this terminology, but it gets used, so I'm going to use it, that dance monkey dance kind of thing, where the connection kind of dissolves. And it's not like that. This is heavily counterbalanced connection through this moment. It can often feel very counterintuitive for leaders, but the more time you get in an anchor, aka you post the connection early enough that you've actually got tension and counterbalance in your anchor, the more a follow is able to play in their anchor because they know where you are, and they have someone to counterbalance their momentum and weight. It makes things so much easier. Personally, I do not play if I don't have a connected anchor, or I play barely at all.
Yes. PSA to leads. Please counterbalance your follows.
Yes. We will play more. We like it.
I personally do not like stumbling backwards.
It is not fun.
No.
We do not like that. We are not here for that.
Feels very clumsy.
Yes. And it also feels just kind of sad. It's like, well, too. I'm dancing all by myself. It's great. /s. Okay.
Melissa realizes that he's getting her into a closed position. And so she starts paying more attention to what he's doing so that he can very easily lead her through all of this. Because there's kind of a lot that happens here.
Right. And it's like, So yes, she's been following the majority of the time, but in these instances where things get more complex, her mindfulness and awareness and attention, they all just turn up several notches
Yep.
in order to follow these kind of things
Mm-hmm.
accurately, safely, and at speed
Yeah.
in a partnered way.
Mm-hmm.
It would be exhausting to follow the entire dance with that level of awareness.
Yeah. Yeah. Generally for high level follows, there's like a level of you're half paying attention
Mm-hmm.
for the majority of the dance because you can just feel where you're supposed to go,
Yeah.
so long as you have a solid lead. But then sometimes you'll get into things like they'll put you in a closed position and you're like, this is different than normal. So you pay more attention to what's happening.
Mm-hmm.
And that generally is a moment where I won't deviate from what I'm being led through.
Right. And it also gives the opportunity for you to either help and or slightly course correct if necessary.
Yeah.
All right. So this next one is a phrase change without a weight assisted move. And it makes me so happy. So this is just a really simple one where Maxence is setting up time and space for Melissa to contribute something. So he's like, here, if you want to lead right here, go for it. And of course, it's Melissa. So of course, she's going to take that opportunity. But, Melissa has her own will, and she may have been like, I'm not feeling it right now. I know this is like alternate reality. It's just we're just conjecturing, but Maxence could have then, if she hadn't taken that, he could have led again to create some sort of a phrase change. He might have moved himself.
Yeah.
So as a leader, whenever you are offering time and space to a follow in a connected way, not a limp noodle way, for them to lead and you to follow, you need to be ready to lead yourself if they don't want to contribute for any given reason. Like socially, that's not as big of a deal, but competitively, that's something as a leader you need to have ready in your back pocket for those moments.
Yeah.
So this is another instance of Melissa asking for just a little bit more time and Maxence paying attention to that. So we have this kind of standard click-clack entrance into a barrel roll. And due to the music, Maxence knows there might be more. And also he's a good leader, so he's checking over his shoulder to see where Melissa is at. And she's making really strong eye contact, and she's really holding her positioning, her shape, and her pitch forward, which is inviting or asking, can I have just an extra moment here? And Maxence allows that to happen instead of rushing her out of the pattern.
Yeah, and this entrance as well, she realizes that there's going to be a footwork sequence, so she pays extra attention to make sure she can follow accordingly.
And then a safety note, I want to highlight how much Maxence is taking the handhold towards Melissa. So that way it's comfortable and safe for her. So this is a fun one. Maxence thinks it's just a normal sugar push.
Yes.
Maxence thinks it's a normal sugar push exit. You can see he's shaping into it, but Melissa's like, I would like you to support my weight. Is that cool? And Maxence is like, of course it's cool. Go for it. Is there anything you want to add about how she asks for the extra weight support instead of in addition to just being like, here's my weight?
Yeah, I can talk about that briefly. So it's something that she very gradually falls into. So you can see that as they go along with this, it's more drastic, like the angle of her towards the ground. She starts out kind of not allowing her arm to go straight back out of that compression like normal. She kind of keeps it there. And that's when she starts adding that extra weight to the connection. And then as she kind of falls further down, as that foot gets further away from where their hand connection is, that gradually increases that compression.
And I want to highlight where Maxence is going, because he's not going just straight screen left. The smartest choice in this situation is to keep as much of Melissa's center up over her right foot as possible.
Mm-hmm.
So he's actually, as you can see right here with his right foot, he's actually crossing in front of his left foot while he's traveling down the slot. So that way he's like more on the rail and is able to provide that support to her in alignment with her center.
Mm-hmm.
And those are the kind of details that are really important. So even though he was supporting her weight, he was following her weight.
Yeah.
Language fun.
So right here is interesting. It's kind of another example of Melissa starts paying extra attention because going into it, she's thinking like normal sugar tuck of sorts. And then he starts coming towards her and it becomes something different than normal. So you can tell that she starts paying more attention to where he's at and to the connection.
Yeah, I think she thought it was going to be, I forget the name of the pattern, but where the leader catches the follows free arm and then redirects them backwards. It looks like she might have been expecting that, but he very clearly provides some pressure. Like he's not really applying pressure with the hand. That would be an awkward place.
Yeah.
So don't miss. He's not applying hand pressure. He's using the side of his arm on her ribs and waist to basically turn her into a door that swings open for him in order to pass through.
Yeah. So yeah, as soon as Melissa notices something different, she pays much more attention to what's happening.
Always loved this little fun variation that he does. Ben Morris gets so excited.
So Maxence gets her into a double handhold. So she pays more attention to what's happening, and she like notices where he's placing himself and kind of pays attention to what he's doing with his body and just kind of mimics it.
He's being really careful with his right foot placement so as not to kick and or step on her. Just wanted to highlight that.
Yeah.
And like, this, depending on who you are as a follow, this might feel intensely awkward.
Yeah.
And this is one of those moments where your inclination might be to escape.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that's bad, because maybe you just don't feel comfortable with that partner. That's fine. But in like competition moments, the inclination to escape can hurt your performance in a spotlight, in a competition environment. So the fact that Melissa is just like, yes, and let's do this. I forgot how just like fluffy Ben's hair was.
He gets very excited.
So excited. All right.
Maxence has been, allowing Melissa to finish what she's doing throughout the dance, but here he kind of takes over right about there and continues things, which gives her a good idea to pay more attention to what's going on.
I think I want to highlight like how Maxence connects there, because it's like so beautiful and important the way he does it. So first of all, he's letting his hand more or less just trail down Melissa's arm. but it's not like his hand is moving through space, hers is moving through space, and he's just letting it happen. But as soon as their handholds connect, he starts counterbalancing the energy. And you can really see him doing that with his left free arm and his right foot, how they're coming towards us in the camera. That's part of how he's counterbalancing her. So even though their handhold through these few frames is moving towards Melissa, he is counterbalancing that movement. It's a resisted release through his whole upper body. So that way there's tension in that moment. He is not pushing her into that shape. He is resisting her into that shape. And it's that resistance that builds up the tension that you can then release to create a turn and or an accelerated turn. Pushing a follow into that position is the kiss of death. I think that's the only way to describe it. It's not fun.
You'll kind of notice some similarities between the first dance and the second dance, and I will point them out, but I'm also going to be pointing out the second one we're looking at is Jordan Tot. It's a demo from Two Left Feet, I think. I don't remember what year, like 2019.
Not sure. But what is time?
Especially
the past 2 to 3 years. Oh, one big year, if you ask me. Link is in the chat. Go ahead and give it a watch. And when you're done, we'll get to analyzing.
There's so much energy in that last ride.
Yeah, I always feel that last ride like in my stomach.
Yeah.
Like I get a centrifugal situation in my stomach just watching it. It's a lot of information. Here for it. Yeah. I love that dance. I love that song.
Yeah, it's a nice one. It's a really nice dance. It's a relatively calmer side of Tot.
Yeah.
Which is nice.
Yeah, you get to see like when she exerts her control at slower speeds, like it's so great to watch.
Yeah. Before we get into analyzing, I just wanted to mention, so overall for this particular dance with Tot, she's paying more attention than she normally does at the end of the slot because of the speed of the song. She's really trying to not rush through the lead and like rushing through her movement. So just wanted to put that out there. She's paying more attention in general than normal.
All right, to the screen share. So I wanted to talk about this opening because it's a much slower song. One thing that can be really great to do phrasing wise in the beginning of a dance is to do tap steps instead of full triple steps. And this is an interesting instance of potato, who started it. They both know each other so well. It is entirely likely that they both had the idea to slow this down and do a tap step. But I wanted to highlight it because as leaders, we can get really excited at the beginning of a dance, especially if it's a comp dance or a spotlight dance. And paying attention to your follows timing, especially at the beginning of a dance, is a really great way to get your partnership off the ground and on the right foot together. And so like Jordan could have been like, I'm gonna do a triple step, but notice Tot was slowing down, be like, oh, that's a good idea, I'll do a tap step, fuck yeah. And I say it in a joking manner, but I'm like totally serious.
But like actually though.
But no, really. It's a great moment of like, yes, he's still technically leading, but styling wise, he could be taking his cues from Tot and following musically. So again, in this particular instance, I think they both had the same idea at the same time and it worked out great. But I just wanted to bring that up because it's a really important thing to keep in mind, especially as a leader.
Roger said in the chat, he says, Maxence once advised me that West Coast Swing was all about momentum. So great connection, listening to your partner plus momentum can equal magical moments.
Agreed. So much of West Coast Swing is just physics based. It's like
Yeah.
what happens when two bodies in time and space affect each other.
Yeah.
And using the physics to your own advantage so things are easier. I think I joked about this when Steven was on with us about a month ago, but I'm like, 99.9% of my teaching boils down to you are working too hard.
Yeah.
Let's do this an easier way. All right. So I think this is the next one you wanted to talk about.
Yes. So with this, I just wanted to talk about how Tot pays extra attention because of the way that she's being led into this and where Jordan is at relative to her. So he's like diagonally behind her, which is a little bit weird. So you can see she really is paying attention and kind of trying to see out of the corner of her eye kind of where he's at. Because once she hits right about here, she can't really tell.
Yeah.
So she continues. Yeah. So she continues with her head so that she can kind of get a glimpse of where he's at. So that she can feel safe, really leaning back into that movement that they're doing.
Yeah. And I actually just noticed that her right heel ends up on his
It does. Yeah.
This is another one of those things where, like, I know because I've done this. When you are able to relax and yet resist your movement in such a way that you have control over the time between your heel being off the floor and hitting the floor, you can notice, oh, there's a foot under my heel. Maybe I'll stop dead in my tracks. So she averts disaster by like keeping her heel raised, and then she does like an and out, so she recenters herself on her left foot and gets her right foot away into a gorgeous line, and a little bit of a flick, but so she's paying that much attention to not only know where like his torso is behind her to connect with it, but they're like, oh, I should not break my partner's toe. Let's not do that. Let's do something
important
else.
Things.
Syncopate.
So this next moment here, you can see that Tot is getting put into like that arm wrapped behind her back. And as soon as that happens, she's paying more attention. She's not trying to do anything else other than just follow what he's giving her, because it can be a very dangerous position to like alter things.
Yeah.
Anytime your arms are somewhere that they aren't normally, it can get dangerous. So she, is very much just being like, okay, let's just see where this goes. And it's also important because of the way that she exits this rotation, because he turns her on the spot and she's already kind of falling forward, but then he's like, no, keep going. So it's really important that she was already paying attention to what was happening. Yeah, because that is something that could have thrown her off if she wasn't paying attention to it.
Yeah, essentially, just physics-wise, what happened is she just gets a little too far down the slot onto her left foot, and then her right foot plants yet another like half step down the slot. So she's just a little too far away from him to make that smooth. That's all that's happening. But she is taught. She finds a way.
It does not end in disaster. So
no, it's I said she finds a way. Now I've got like Jurassic Park stuck in my head. Like finds a way. My brain sometimes, people. Side note, a really important connection detail of this kind of hammerlock hip catch is that, yes, they are hand to hand. It's Tot's right hand, Jordan's right hand. However, Tot's right hand isn't what he's using to lead her out of this.
Right.
It's a hip catch.
Yep.
Her hand is an intermediary between his hand and her hip.
Yep.
So she's putting her hand against her hip, so he can lead her hip. Her hand just happens to be in between those two things.
Mm-hmm.
That is all.
Exactly.
It is not like spinning a top, like one of those ones with on a string that you like yank on the string. It's not that. It is not that. Okay, soapbox over. Is there anything else
On
you
to the
want?
next.
Okay, cool. I have so many soapboxes. So Jordan's inviting Tot into a fun spin ride sequence. But as soon as her leg starts kicking out, this is the moment where Jordan's like, I must pay attention and keep us both alive.
Mm-hmm.
Because even though they are the kind of couple to have practiced this specific movement together for hours on end, likely, it's always going to be ever so slightly different from instance to instance.
Yeah.
And so both of them are constantly course correcting not only their own relationships to the floor, but their connection with each other to facilitate the movement.
Yeah.
And like right here, when she does her hop and plant, it's really important for Jordan to pay attention to where that plant is happening in relationship to not only her, but himself. So that way he can counterbalance her as she's moving through to the other foot.
Yeah.
And like the direction from that step to this next one. So you can see how she's on two different rails, two different floorboards, even though she's moving down the slot screen left.
Yeah.
The fact that she's not going perfectly screen left, she's actually going towards the back wall at the same time is really important information for him to counterbalance properly, because that means he needs to come not only towards us in the camera, but screen right. Equal and opposite.
Yeah.
Because physics. And then this is the cutest stinking hop anchor. I don't know I've ever seen a hop anchor before, but I like it.
Yeah, it worked. It was musical, so we're going with it.
And was there something you wanted to add about the closed position?
Yeah, I just wanted to note, you can really see on Tot's face that she is paying attention when she gets put into that closed position. Yeah, so here Tot's getting put into something a little bit different than normal. So she's making sure to wait and be led into something.
Yeah, she's really using spotting to pay attention to where he is.
Yeah.
And then right here, the way she's allowing her left side to kind of project towards him through her rotation is a really great detail, because that helps his hand get over his head without her having to move into like a weird shape. She's just extending her left side just ever so slightly. And then he's doing the rest of the compensation by putting the hand slightly behind his head.
And once she kind of gets into this like locked position, she really takes control over the timing that she wants to go into that settle. Because it's not quite just smooth directly into that settled position in the with the wrapped arm.
Right.
She adds in a little height and then drops. And so she really takes control over her own timing there.
Yeah. And this is where it's like switching to Jordan paying extra attention to Tot because of the way she's sinking into that. He can tell she wants just a little bit more time. So his original plan of action may have been to bring her out of this hip catch on the other side now. His intention might have been to bring her out of that faster, but because of the way she's sinking into it, he's like, maybe we'll just do a push tuck.
Yeah.
And keep it chill. So that way she has more time and space, not only in that position, but to get out of it.
Yeah. So this is a fun one. Jordan puts himself in a position where he's going under her arm. So she becomes like a really solid base, I guess,
She
for
gets hotel
whatever
pose.
he's doing. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, because Jordan kind of likes to, do his own thing sometimes. So she just sees that he's doing something on his own, becomes a solid base, and just kind of waits and lets him finish what he's doing.
Yeah. For follows, watching the recording of this on YouTube, if you have been headbutt in the pelvis by a leader doing this, just raise your hand in the comments. I have. It left a brute. I was fine. I was more worried about their head. And I think for both of us, it was champions, right? Two different champions. The champions nonetheless. It's so funny. They get so aggressively zealous about this. I bring it up because I just wanted to highlight how Jordan is helping prevent that for himself. He's stepping down line away. So he's not perfectly perpendicular to Tot. That gives him his spine more room. And he's also tucking his head to his chin.
Yep.
And he's doing a really simple like rainbow roll, kind of like from quarter to quarter turn of his neck. It's really minor. It's really small. So that
gotta make sure to gauge that properly in terms of distance.
Pay attention, sirs and madams and theys and thems. Please do not give yourself concussions on your partner's pelvises. Okay, thanks. Bye.
Anywho, moving on.
All right, so coming around the end of this pattern, Jordan's probably expecting Tot to come around at the same speed that she went into it. However, Tot decides to do some fun styled extension here. And as soon as Jordan notices that the tension in the connection isn't resolving for her to pass him again, he turns his head, really looks at her to pay attention to what she's doing and to figure out what she needs from him in order to continue with her own movement. So you can see there's like a bit of a hesitation with his footwork. It's because he's paying so much attention. He wants to be really certain about what she's up to. So he hooks behind, he lifts it up and hooks behind again. And then he's like, okay, I'm on the same page and I can add to it. And he does equal and opposite out the other side to give her just a little bit more of that contrast oomph for what she was doing.
Yeah. That right foot kind of hovers for a minute in a manner which a follow might have. I know in particular, I kind of think of certain movements for follows as the lead placing your foot based on what they're doing. And so it kind of swaps, and Jordan kind of has that moment where he's kind of hovering with that foot, like he kind of commits but doesn't fully commit, and then he kind of sees where she's at and goes with it.
And again, that's one of those moments where you might think there might be a dissolving of the connection for that to happen, but no. There is nice, strong, sturdy connection for that to happen. And that's what allows for the really great equal and opposite right through here. Because like right here when the hand is high, that's when the connection has dissolved. Somewhat. And then it grows again. I hear Angel. All right, what is my note? Do you ever just look at one of your notes and realize you're not actually reading it? That just happened to me. Okay. So one-footed turns, I would argue that every single one-footed turn, as soon as you have got the follow turning, it is now your job to either A, keep it going, or notice the follow wants to stop and let them. But it's mostly that latter. It's like, when does the follow want to end this, and how do they want to end it? Because while it is possible as a leader to kind of forcefully end a one-armed, I guess a one-footed spin,
kind of.
I wouldn't necessarily recommend it. I would err on the side of what the follow wants to do to end it. And so Ta ends up choosing to stop her momentum by both dropping her weight down and also placing her hand on his hip. And again, at this moment, he's not like get out of this. I don't like this. He lets her stay there as long as she so chooses. It's all up to her right now. He's just following and letting it happen.
Just going along with the ride.
Yep. So, the joke is like, yeah, I led that. I totally led that.
Yeah.
That joke. Basically, every time that joke is made, it's because the leader was actually following.
Yeah. Yeah.
I can hear the heads exploding in the distance. Was there anything you wanted to add to that one?
Yeah, I actually just wanted to add. So when Todd's coming up and kind of resettling onto both feet, Jordan is still following. And then once he realizes where she's at exactly, he then switches back to leading. That's all I wanted to add.
Yeah. And then in addition, because like her right arm is like technically in a rather compromised position, while there's connection there, it's light until her shoulder is back in a normal frame. So I'd say the connection is getting back to normal right around here. Whenever a follow's hand is somehow back behind their shoulder, more on the back side of their body, you either want very little connection or no connection, just to protect them.
So right here, I just wanted to mention how much Tot really pays attention to the fact that she's not being led forward. She's being moved laterally.
Yeah, it's like a lateral double resistance.
It's interesting.
Her focus is almost meditative. It's so strong. Like it just grows throughout the whole dance. All right, now we are coming up on the thing that I had time traveled to. Apparently, I was excited about it. So this is where technically Jordan is still leading because he's initiating all of this. However, Tot is also leading in that she is helping support his weight.
Yeah.
So this is one of those meta moments where they're both leading and both following.
Oh, at the same time.
All at the same time. There's just so much happening. And then while we're here, I just want to highlight like their connection for that to happen. So it's nice and stable. So he hooks, it's not just that he's putting his hand up over her shoulder. He's like really getting his elbow up in her armpit.
Yeah.
And then she's placing her left hand down and under into his armpit. And I think his forearm is really braced against her ribs.
Yeah.
And you can see how much she is pitching to her right as she's rotating to really counterbalance him.
And then she's kind of just watching what he's doing, going along with it.
Yeah, that similar hesitancy we saw with Jordan's right foot when Tot was extending the pattern, she's doing here because she's really paying attention to where his weight is. So she's waiting to place her feet in turn in a place that will allow her to support him the best. I just love how much fun he's having.
I know.
All right, so this is another one of those really simple moments where Tot is asking for just a little bit more time and space through the anchor. So you can see that Jordan is doing a simple like triple that's traveling both laterally and down the slot. Triple step. And right here, even though his right foot is free, he's probably thinking, I'm going to lead a pattern. But the way Tot is really collecting and slowing herself down and bringing her core in and up is a really clear communication that she wants a little bit more space and time. So he ends up slowing himself down and doing a little bit of a flick into a more normal anchor where his left foot is free to lead.
Yeah, she pretty much does the exact opposite of anchoring.
Yeah, she's like, I am not ready because I'm styling. But this is one of those things because it's so easy to let your autopilot take over, especially on anchors. But as a leader, it's really important to like be paying attention for those cues that like, oh, my follow needs more time and space. Or conversely, as a follow, be like, oh, I should give them more information that I want more time and space. Like be really obvious about it. Because I bet when everybody watched this on YouTube at speed, nobody noticed how almost like in her ears, her shoulders get because it's only a piece of what's happening. It's not like a picture where you just hang out there and go like, well, that's awkward. It's so natural in the context of what's going on. But when you take it out of the context, you're like, well, that's awkward. But that helps communicate to Jordan what she wants. Lean into the awkward, embrace it. It is your turn signal. I'm so sorry. We're almost over, folks. Only 4 more.
Getting towards the second rite of doom that we've talked about on this channel. So right here, I just wanted to note Tot seems to know where Jordan is going with this. And she seems to have an idea of how she wants to work with the music with this really like falling forward of her chest. But she really waits until she sees like where her hand is being placed to make sure that it won't impede anything that she's doing before she goes for it. Because it is a very dramatic movement. So.
Yeah. And this is one of those that I would argue is a very, like this kind of turn where her arm gets up behind her, are so uniquely them.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not sure. I'm certain it is technically leadable, but as a follow, you would have to have this movement trained into your body.
Yeah.
It isn't something that's conventional in the West Coast Swing Connection for your frame to do that and react that way.
Yeah, it's not the natural movement.
Yeah, this is a practiced thing. So leaders only do this with follows you have practiced with this particular pattern.
Yep.
Okay, thanks, bye.
That's all I wanted to say about that one.
All right.
This one's a fun moment. They're just doing a little movement enclosed, and you can kind of tell that Tot is paying extra attention because they are enclosed, and with the speed of the music, she just really needs to pay extra attention to make sure she's following and not doing on her own.
It's just a simple groove enclosed position, and I love both leading and following this kind of thing.
Yeah,
it's phenomenal.
It's nice.
And I wish more people kept this kind of thing in their repertoire.
Yeah, it gives her a minute to take extra attention to the connection.
Yeah, and you can even see how clear the pulsing is.
Yeah,
even when we're in slow motion. It's great.
Yeah, so here, based on the way that Jordan kind of brings her in and then opens, she's noticing that this is going to probably be something footwork related. So she's then paying attention to where he's going.
And I want to highlight, like, the way you lead that is you prep yourself properly as a leader.
Yeah.
So while he does have his hand on her forearm, kind of like hooked around and forward on the inside of her forearm, you can see how he is basically prepping his own body mirrored from her. It's the same thing.
Yeah.
And because he's prepping himself properly, it preps her properly. I know that because that kind of pattern was included in last season's JT Swing routine, the lower level one. And that was something leaders I was helping with were struggling with. It's really important to learn how to do that kind of turn for yourself before you lead those kind of like New Yorker side-by-side turns.
Yeah.
All right, last but not least, the ride that makes our stomachs feel like a centrifuge. Kind of like the rides we were talking about earlier. This is like both of them are paying so much attention in order to counterbalance each other properly. So like, let's go back to the beginning. So if we take the idea that the leader is the one that initiates the movement, we can see that this initial turn, Jordan is leading it. However, as soon as her leg comes off the ground and the blinding flash goes off, she is now initiating the ride portion of this situation.
Yeah.
She is applying more momentum to the equation than he is.
Yeah.
Leg weight is something else, y'all.
Yep.
With great power comes great responsibility. I know this better than most because I got a lot of leg on me. But at that point in time, it becomes Jordan's sole job to keep them both alive.
Yeah.
And part of that is maintaining her foot
Yeah.
on the same point on the floor and her center relative to that point. And he's going around it while also counterbalancing her frame. It's a good time, people.
Depends on your definition of a good time.
Yeah, hence the slight questioning in my voice. And particularly, it's her leg going from aimed back behind her body in kind of a partial arabesque, and her swinging it to the side and through and forward. That's what is applying all the energy. And like, it's so much energy that I think she wasn't quite, like, she went back even further maybe than she expected.
Yeah.
A lot
of energy.
And also their right feet basically being in parallel with each other, and then right knees against each other is also a really important element to sharing a center. It's so awkward when one or both partners is not like, they're a little weirded out by that, like, I'm putting my leg kind of inside your leg, because it can feel uncomfortable if you're not used to it. It can feel awkward. But if you try to make this work without doing that, will not end well.
Particularly something with this amount of momentum applied to it will not end well.
Yeah, no. All right, one last time, because it's just a lot. Wham! You can even see how it's really like taking her standing heel.
Yeah.
It's throwing it forward, like there. Like in one frame, it just goes thump.
It's the energy is being sent in a very strange place, very aggressively.
Do not try this at home. There we go. Now no one can sue us.
Hopefully that was helpful for figuring out when you should be paying attention to your partner.
Yeah. Or when you can offer to initiate something from the follow role, and how as a leader you can be a better partner for your follow, especially if you have one that tends to contribute a lot. Personally, it's my favorite. I technically know a lot of patterns as a leader. I only lead practically about 6 of them.
It's great.
It's great. But my follows contribute things, and then things change, and I pay attention to them, like, oh, we're doing that now. Cool. That was a great idea. And I just let it happen. And then
kind of like that way we got into that 1 foot.
Oh, that was so great. So Alicia and I got to dance together for the first time in like 2 years last weekend. It was magical. And yes, we still got it. That was cool. I was a bit anxious about it, but it was delightful. And then at the end, it was like, oh, just lazy 1 foot spin. Felt so good.
Yeah.
But then we were both like, we only need 2 or 3. It's fine.
Yeah.
Just because you can spin infinitely into the distance
doesn't mean you should.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There. Yeah. That's the last.
It is impressive to an extent.
Yeah. All right. Well, it looks like there aren't any questions. So thank you all so much for joining us tonight. Next week we are doing fan pick video analysis. So if you're watching the replay of this video, feel free to post a submission in the comments below, or just DM us on Facebook. We are not hard to find. Nerdy West Coast Swing with Cassie Winter and Alicia Marshall, or one of us individually. We will pick from the options about a day or two before next Thursday, and it will be fun. We'll just frame through the whole thing and commentary away.
Exactly.
All right. Well, thank you all, and we'll see you next week.
See you next week. Is Robert next to you?
Yes. Can you
I
hear
can
him?
see like part of a face.
Oh no. You are in camera, sir. You should go that way.
I started laughing when you were talking because I like noticed that I could see like an eyeball.
Little creepy face in the corner. Excellent. For those who don't know, in text, if you do /s, that means sarcasm. And now I am one of those horrible people who uses text things. It's like saying LOL out loud, and I am sorry. Resources that may affect my audio quality. Please let me know if I suddenly sound like a robot from the 80s.
So far, so good.
I mean, cool. But he is asking eventually, wait, am I right? I might be in the wrong place.
I think
I'm in the wrong place. Sorry, I'm going to start over again. I thought it was a different ride. An underarm turn into a reverse whip is one of those things I would love to get nerdy about on Nerdy West Coast Swing, but I feel like that's one of those things I have to talk about in person. Because it really needs that third dimension, and I can't draw well enough to give y'all a third dimension right now. So, if you ever see me in person, I'll just show you, because there's a trick to it, and it's an important trick. It's not just